Good afternoon, dear friends. Following us from the web, a big hug of all of you following us through the web now, and hopefully as well in the future as we give continuation to these amazing talks on Saturdays
Léo,
through
tu tá
our.
com. You have your return over there.
I have a return. Okay,
Yeah.
give me 1 second. Let me see what's going on here. My Logitech. Is it better now, Daniel?
Yes. So yeah.
Okay. All right, guys. Sorry about that. And we go back and we welcome everyone to this amazing series of talks that we were doing on planetary transition, as well as every Saturday that we're here following one another in different talks on the on different topics through the SSB channels that we have. You can follow us through our YouTube channel as well as through Facebook, and we ask you that you please partake in this amazing afternoon. And you can actually write comments throughout the session, and as well as the end, when we open up for questions and comments that you may have about the whole topic that we're going to be discussing. Before we go on and pray, I would like to read a passage of the book Happy Life. And it is a book by the Spirit Joanna de Angelis through the hands of the medium Divaldo Franco. And she says, get used to the truth. The habit of the white lie, also called an innocent or social lie, will lead you to more serious lies and push you into the swamp of calumny and frequent cursing. A spark produces conflagrations similar to those produced by creeping flames. Great crimes originate in tiny infractions beyond the reach of justice, allowing the evil to worsen. Be morally severe with yourself. Do not embark in the canoe of convenience. Everyone is responsible for himself, and his acts are engraved on his individual conscience. Be yourself in constant moral progress. Keep this aside. If you do wish, I can certainly share this with you at the end, as I always like to do, because we never know when we're going to need these teachings that we receive. On that note, let us just find a comfortable yet straight position where we can pray together and acknowledge our presence here. Bring this moment to our hearts, our minds, to our homes, thanking God for the opportunity that we have, that even though our headquarters are closed still, we can still get together, pray, and exalt our minds and our hearts into something that is beyond ourselves. We are thankful, dear Lord, for this great opportunity that we have. We're thankful for one another, how much we are cared for, and how much we care for one another. The support that we receive, despite the difficulties that we face every day in our lives. May this afternoon and this evening be a moment of light to all of us, and may we all receive from these teachings a foundation for us to organize and reorganize our lives, always pondering on the truth that Joanna de Angelis comes to us and tells us that we need to be severe. Severe in the sense that we are to progress as quick as possible, understanding ourselves and our reason here in this physical body. So we are thankful for all that we have received, all that we are receiving now, as well as what we will receive in the future, to once more ascend towards the light, towards you, dear Creator. We thank you, and so be it. So, as we were saying before, we would like to re-engage or continue this amazing series of studies that we have been doing on the book Planetary Transition. This is session 6, and we are covering, as we have been doing, 2 chapters per session. There's a lot to cover, as usual. The author, Manuel de Miranda, is very, very peculiar on the way he writes, and he brings this message to us because it brings a lot of details. Unfortunately, I can't bring you all the details. I can't cover everything because of time, obviously, and because we ought to read for ourselves so that you, the reader, can take your own make your own conclusions, can learn from it, and experience what he's trying to say. It is very important that I would like to share something with you, as I was discussing with Daniel earlier today, that this chapter and the previous chapter as well, we're going to do a quick highlight on the previous chapter, is very interesting because of the examples that he brings that happened when the planet Earth went through some shaking during the tsunami or in the Indian Ocean, and the example that he's bringing is very vivid and it's very harsh, if I may say. But something came to mind as I was actually about to start here, and I have a passage written on a little sticky note that kind of helps me a little bit. And it says like this: the divine determinism is of goodness. This is actually a passage from the book The Consoler by Emmanuel, that he reminds us that the determinism that sometimes happen in our lives that pushes us forward. It's not that we are puppets, and it's not that we are somebody's controlling what we do, but the determinism of following the law of transformation, right, is something that is going to happen to us, and it comes to us to make us progress, and it's of goodness. It's not to make us suffer. Now, in the process, just like when it happens with children, in the process we may complain a little bit because we don't understand the full essence of it, but it's obviously of goodness. And here, what we would like to do is to, really remind one another of this necessity of to ascend, to get better, become better human beings, become better citizens of the universe as well. So it's important that I bring this to you because the cases that we're going to bring today with the 2 chapters that we're going to learn, chapter 11 and 12, can be a little bit disturbing for some, but I'll try to make it as not that I'm going to change, because Joanna D'Angelo has already said, right? We have to face the truth. We really have to stand to to truth and with reason, as we learn with Spiritism as well, so we can actually learn something from it. On chapter 9, we actually saw just a little recap. We saw a little bit of go back here. We saw an existential challenges. The case of Cynthia. I called it Cynthia because there was no name, obviously, that Mr. Miranda actually gave it to the case, just to illustrate that she was going through a very severe case of obsession after discarnating, something that had happened during her reincarnation, the physical body, but after she passed, she actually continued on with that issue. And then in lessons of high magnitude, we would like to bring the case that Oscar actually was talking to a group of friends who needed help as well, and needed to ascend into a better condition. And there was this very dark forces fighting, and Dr. White actually came and helped with the situation. I would like to remind everyone that everything that is happening here, there's some accounts of happening in the physical body, but everything is happening in the spiritual realm, right? After individuals discarnate, this is the state that they actually are vibrating on. And this is what we're going to see tonight with continue learning. Sorry, it's kind of a little faded away there. And then life responds as plans. These are the two chapters that we're going to cover tonight, this afternoon into this evening. So chapter 11, continue learning. I would like to just read a couple sentences, and then we're gonna make a pause. Steeped into the dense psychosphere of human afflictions, the region in which we operated remained terrifying. Although the day was shining with light and the sky was a cloudless turquoise blue from the brightness of the sun, the presence of the colossal tragedy overshadowed the rubble-strewn landscape. It looked like a war zone that had suffered heavy artillery along with destruction by airstrikes. Near the immense, once paradisical beach, shattered trees bobbled on the gentle waves. Others had piled up on the sand and in the vast region hit by the tsunami fury of destruction. I want to stop right here and kind of call attention to all of us, because one of the things that I've seen throughout these chapters is that Mr. Miranda, when he starts these chapters, he brings this very dark and condition of that he's depicting, obviously, that is happening in the beyond, right, in the physical, in the spiritual realm, and he connects several times with the physical realm. But the reality that we see is obviously of the physical, but he's showing what's happening on the other side, and it's quite dark. It's quite difficult. One thing that as we were studying this, it's like, imagine ourselves if we had to endure this, to work in these conditions, right? Because one thing is beautiful for us to see the physical, right, and connect, and thank God we have this. I'm not saying that this is not important. It's super important, because if we had to deal with this at times, imagine having to go to work in the morning and it's raining, right? We already have that sense, oh my God, it's kind of a gloomy day, or when it's cold outside, when it's snowing, we're complaining. These group of spirits that Mr. Miranda is actually partaking or in helping, they don't let that actually take them from what they're trying to accomplish, which is to help other individuals. So they're very straightforward to what they have to do, and no matter the conditions, they're there, they're working, they're really gung-ho about what they have to do. So keep this in mind, because this sets the tone for what we're going to see, and that it also engages with the human mind and heart, right? Or the spirit, mind, and heart that is suffering, that is beyond just a scenery, right? Because when we suffer from the heart or the mind, there's no scenery that can be worse. There is no situation that can be worse, because we are feeling it, or someone else that we love is feeling it. So I just want to highlight this, because they don't stop. They just continue to work, and obviously helping others, as we can see. In one of the emergency hospital tents, there was a lot of activity by incarnates and discarnates. This is also important, because we think that in these hospitals that we see, especially now these remote hospitals that we see helping those individuals of COVID-19, or in the actual true hospitals that are helping right now, we think that are just the incarnated ones that are there, but it's quite the opposite. They are receiving there is a lot of light in these locations, working for representing. Spirits representing the light of God, helping those who are going through some tough times. So we have to connect with these minds, right? And we think sometimes we're left to be taken care of the physical only. No, but it's quite evolving. But as Mr. Miranda was actually going through this the scenery and everything, he came across a situation, and this is one of the first case that I would like to discuss with you. There is actually one case in this chapter, chapter 11, and then there's a couple chapters in chapter 12, but let's go ahead and work on this right now. And he said, I was observing the situation when a discarnated woman with Northern European features, reminiscent of her last earthly journey, approached Dr. White and asked for help. What was she asking for help for? She said that her grandson, a young man of 25 years of age, used to visit the region frequently with friends from their country to enjoy its many perks of pleasure. Yes. Um, and she said that bearer of a vile character and a user of chemical drugs, he attracted young women and young and experienced local girls due to his athletic bearing and unique surfing skills. So, what did this young man, what would this grandmother try to do? Ask for help for her grandson that recently had been struck by the one of the waves, and he was seriously hurt. He was really, really bad hurt. Um, and what was the condition? We're going to see a little bit more. He was in a very tough physical condition. He was still connected with the physical body, and he was suffering quite a bit spiritually as well. And we're going to see a little bit more of the case. But what he used to do is that he used to finance trips to girls who were interested in some adventures, and they would be then sent. They would travel to his country of origin, and then whenever they got there, these girls were actually turning to the mafia organizations and become sex slaves as well. So they would suffer not only from being separated from their families, but obviously to be dumped in a situation like that. And they were told that not only they would have to pay for their trips, but also for their day-to-day expenses as well, and become sex slaves. So he was involved with human trafficking, which is a huge issue, not only in the world, but also here in the US. I mean, recently I came across several cases studying for personal reasons in this area, and it's still a huge issue now in 2020. There's actually a month, I believe the month of March is dedicated for human traffic, and there are several companies that they work with the United States to avoid and to make sure that this is we get to put a stop onto the situation. But again, going back to the case, it's this grandmother is asking for help because he's in a really tough situation. Once more, physically and spiritually. The doctors who actually helped him gave, obviously, Mr. Miranda gave an idea of how he was doing physically, but also spiritually. And he said after the doctors placed him on apparatus for computerized study, they concluded that his case was extremely delicate. He was in a coma with a large area of his brain compromised by cranial traumas received when the building collapsed and the wall of water hit him. Right, so this is the physical. So you can imagine with a cranial trauma, and we will see now how Dr. White comes along and say, but it's beyond the physical, right? It's not just the physical that is really jeopardized, but also the spiritual components as well of this whole situation. The young man is critical and there is no possibility of recovery. The number of days he went without assistance has compromised his other organs, and his heart has become highly disrupted under the exhausting effort. It has stopped twice, which has then compromised the brain even more because of anoxia. But worse yet is his spiritual condition. We saw his spirit still attached to its body, and this is Mr. Miranda saying, trashing around in the powerful grip of two cruel adversaries who were conning him. Their hatred was being observed by the victim, especially through the brain, heart, and solar chakras, affecting his weakened heart. One of the spirits with demonic mask threatened the young man. And this is when Dr. White starts to talk to these two individuals, explaining to them, look, we're here to help. We're here not only to help the young man, and we understand what he has done. He has caused a lot of harm to families, to your daughters, but we need you to stop what you're doing. But they continue on with an amazing rhetorical, really fighting Dr. White on the matter at hand, saying, "Look, he hurted, our family. He hurted our girls. So now he's going to pay, and he's going to be pretty much judged by us. And we don't need your help. We don't need you to come over here and bring your Christian faith." Trying to minimize the situation or try to say that he is not to be judged, right? And I'm paraphrasing here because the conversation is pretty difficult dealing with these individuals that Dr. White held with them. I brought a couple excerpts here for us to have an idea. And he said, astounded, I looked at Dr. White, who explained, "Our brothers are trying to kill him. That is, they are trying to wrest control of his body by poisoning his heart with vibrations of hatred until it stops beating. In its present state of weakness, it cannot handle the ingestion of poisonous fluids emitted by his enemies much longer. In addition to the other causes of imbalance, they are making his condition even worse because they were again sending vibrations to this young man and trying to actually stop the physical body from trying to resist the blow of the wave on when he actually hit his head with the stroke of the wave. And they just kept going on and on and on in the rhetorical of really obsessing him and taking him out of the body. And he said, talking to the two spirits who were obsessing him, I acknowledge, he began with kindly tone of voice, the validity of your arguments regarding the patient. However, the application of justice is up to God, who knows each of us in depth. We can never know how to correct someone when dominated by hatred and desires of revenge. There is no doubt that this young man is reckless and has been committing heinous crimes, but snatching him away by death would be a perverse, unjustified crime, because evil must in no way be part of the context of life. So, considering the circumstances, trying to kill him violates the sovereign laws, for nobody has the right to take the club of justice in their own hands. Now, I would like to stop here and just make a note that these two individuals, they were of Muslim faith, and in no point whatsoever they give or hide the understanding of the life after life, the continuation of life. They have a very well constructed understanding in their ways, but they understand that now it's time to take to seize physical life from this incarnated spirit, right? So that once the young man would discarnate, they would make prey. They would take over completely this young man or the spirit and enslave them. This is what they wanted to do: take control of this young man. So by maintaining the young man in the physical body was the last thing they wanted. So when Dr. White comes and try to rescue him and maintain him in the body, it was not what they wanted to do. So that's why they kept clashing with Dr. White. Just explaining this because we're going to see how this whole situation unfolds. And Dr. White, after a lot of conversation, even mentioning to them, look, do unto other as you wish to be done unto you, because he asked them, do you think in your last reincarnation, were you perfect? Did you not upset someone, or did you not do something that was incorrect? So if you're not perfect, how can you judge others, right? So, allow this man to correct his misdeeds in a different way. But they did not want to move. And he said, I have offered you the blessing of charity for this criminal, and you have rejected. Said Dr. White, excuse me. Now I find myself in the position of having to appeal to other resources available in situations like this. Dr. White, in his condition of a high mentor, if we can call it this way, have resources that we don't have. And this is not to say that Dr. White manipulated the situation or manipulated these two individuals. He was trying to help not only the young man who did a lot of crazy stuff, but the two spirits as well who were also obsessing them, because he wanted to disconnect everyone, but also bring joy for everyone, right? Because there is no way to settle on something, as he said, when our hearts are full of hatred. He began to pray in deep concentration, which were more, and we were more than willing to join. This is Mr. Miranda saying that, look, we saw him praying. Let's pray together. Let's join forces. So whatever he's trying to accomplish can be done. And then a gentle light surrounded them, and Anna, who had been holding the torch aloft in her right hand, setting on the ground, and approaching both within higher light, she embraced them kindly while the doctor released the spirit from the pressure of its foes. So they were able to magnetize these two individuals. And remember, Anna is the Dr. White's assistant. She's always in the picture, coming and helping and doing whatever it can be done to facilitate the work of helping these spirits. So they come and they magnetize these individuals, these two spirits who were obsessing the young men, and then they were able to be helped as well. So we see here that just a note that we would like to bring, that this idea of dealing with the spirits, dealing with this obsession, the counterbalance of obsession, right, is to not only to help the person who is quote unquote suffering now, but those also who are inflicting the pain. Because if we reverse the situation, just as we can reverse here, this young man was not, he was not perfect. The reason he had someone or a couple spirits going after him was because he did something wrong. And he did something wrong to a lot of young girls. He destroyed many families, and now he is responding to his actions. So it's a consequence of his actions. We're not judging, we're just analyzing, and we're trying to bring some truth, out of this whole context, so that we don't fall prey of these situations. Not that anybody here is doing anything, or anybody who is watching this will be doing this, but there are certain things that we have to analyze in life, or I shouldn't say certain things. Everything that we do in life will create a ripple effect. It will create a consequence, right? So we have to be aware of it and understand. Suddenly, his two enemies were overcome by a strange support and supported by the spirit nurse. They were set on the ground in order to be transferred by benevolent aides summoned mentally by Dr. White, who then applied wholesome energies to the comatose patients. And then he actually explains that, yes, he's going to make it. And the grandmother obviously was very happy for the outcome of the work. He will receive skilled resources and will soon be able to return home, where he will undergo a long trajectory of moral recovery. If we think about the situation and how everything happened, let's say, and we're not here judging, and this is not on the chapter, but let us think now his physical condition after this. He was seriously injured because the brain was not responding, especially because the heart was not pumping blood and the lack of oxygen. So I'm forgetting the term right now, not the consequences, the problems that he will continue to live on because of this accident will really affect his physical life, to be in the physical body. He will still live, as we can see here, but he will have several issues that you have to endure. This is not to say that he's being punished directly, but again, it's a consequence of what happened being in that region, the way he was actually being in that region. It happened. but it is also a rescue for him to now, as a spirit in the physical body that is now damaged, to rethink of what he had done, and also to keep him away from the individuals that would possibly come back and obsess him as these two other individuals were obsessing him. Again, we're giving possibilities, right? We're showing possibilities. Nonetheless, the case is certainly a very difficult case, but it is a rescue situation that is happening in the beyond, allowing this young man to continue on with his life in the physical body, and as he said, Dr. Watts said, to go on a moral recovery. But then again, as I always like to bring, what's happening here? Let's go to the bottom line of what happens in the physical, on the spiritual realm, right? We have to bring this truth so we can actually be aware of it, and we understand. And by understanding the mechanism, we can help. We can help ourselves, and we can help others as well. Mr. Miranda asks, from what I gather, the spirit adversaries were plotting his discarnation, correct? We kind of touched base on this, but I wanted to bring the what Dr. White says, and he says we can call such aggression an attempt at spiritual murder. And he said, Mr. Miranda says again, does that happen a lot? And then he says, more often than you might imagine. We must never forget that the spirit world is the realm of causes, where the actions and deeds that materialize on the earth originate. The source of sublime inspiration, it also gives rise to devastating reactions when their authors are on the lower levels of evolution. In colonies of pain and shadow, perverse minds draw up awful plans that inspire earthly wonders, desensitizing them and assisting them in their misguided conduct. Everything that occurs in the body comes from the psyche, and therefore from the spirit, which is the driver of the material carriage. Before we go on and we go on in chapter 12, I wanted to highlight a couple of things here. I didn't bring in writing because it would make, again, or talk kind of, a lot of reading, but I want to highlight a couple of things that happens at the end, that as they were analyzing, Dr. White is analyzing this the situation. He's really explaining to us how it happens, right? These minds are connected based on what our minds are connected, our hearts are connected based on what we do and how we vibrate. Everything causes an effect, there is a consequence for everything that we do, and it's important that we pay attention to it. The other point that I would like to highlight again, and I already said it, is that these two spirits, and he says, much like many of us Christians, understands, have or recognizes the reality of life after life once we discarnate. For someone of the Christian faith, for example, a Catholic, right, or a Protestant, or of a Muslim faith, or someone who is of the Jewish faith, it's hard for us to sit down and talk about reincarnation. So it's hard for us to go ahead and accept the idea that we'll continue to be who we are, along with all the other lives, all the other things that we have lived through past lives in the now, right? And it's important to remind ourselves that we know once we discarnate, we are there, we're living, we connect with the minds that afflicted us, we connect with the mind as well that did good things for us, and what we did as well. Because what comes from us is as important, or if not more important, than what others do to us as well. So we have to remind ourselves. And Dr. White says one thing, that is the reason why we have to instruct people about the afterlife, about the common sense that life is just one thing. We may do several internships in different physical bodies, different moments of our eternity, but that eternity is a fact for all of us. And that is why teachings like this, conversations like this. I don't like to call this a teaching because we're just discussing a book here, but talks, study groups that talks about the life after life, the reincarnation process, right, at the Spiritist Center, as well as I would add the spiritual teachings that are in different faiths of life, no matter what religion you're following. But when we try to disconnect ourselves from the materialistic ideals of life, that in itself is a huge jump. I will certainly, a follower of Spiritism, trying to study and understand more and more. I would also add that is important to have these teachings. We're recently talking in our study group on Thursdays of the book Heaven and Hell, the importance of this understanding, right, that Spiritism brings to us, that we can prepare ourselves with the baggage that we have to have a better tomorrow, right? Be someone better than today, as we see also in the Gospel according to Spiritism. And this is a huge jump in society, in how we will perceive one another, and make a better tomorrow. So these are the highlights again for chapter 11. And please make your comments. If you have any questions, go ahead and put on the whatever way you're following us. You can in the future as well kind of connect with us after you read or you reread this chapter. But let us give continuation, because chapter 12 is as intriguing as this one. When Mr. Miranda brings the idea of life responds as planned, right? Here he starts in a different way, because now he's actually analyzing the environment, yes, but more so the spiritual environment. The activity continued arduously. Once more, the difficulties that he's bringing on how the work has been, considering the number of victims that had been swept away by the tragedy. Unfortunately, without any preparation beforehand for confronting this spiritual reality, were struggling in the strong bonds of their putrefying bodies, trying to reanimate them in order to recommence the Dantesque feast of illusion, when their efforts were not crowned with success, and they certainly never were. Despair drove them to madness, evidence that they had lived only for the sensations. We were just saying the idea on how we need to live a more spiritualized life, and here again is Mr. Miranda saying about this living for the sensation, living for the moment, right? Acknowledging the idea that a lot of teenagers nowadays like to say you only live once, right? So we have to step out of that condition, and this is one of the things that perhaps this amazing chapter talks about. And he says, of course, there were many spirits that had been ennobled by their labors, dignity, religious faith, and moral values. These were assisted by beloved family members who had gone before them on the journey of immortality, and by selfless mentors who had assisted them during their earthly journey. Here we also wanted to highlight the fact that by doing the right thing, consequently, we will connect with higher minds, and that we are not, the same way that the difficult minds were being helped, guess what? If you do the right thing, you'll be helped as well. And it's just a consequence, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to believe on a just and sovereign God that would just leave us astray or not help us in this moment of transition. That is the transition from the physical body back into the spiritual realm. However, I'm referring to the majority, the careless mass of humanity, for which life means only a trip to the land of chimeras, devoid of its profound significance. But since God's love is always present, they never lacked effective aid for the spirit world, as was the case with our small group of servants of the good. I want to take a highlight here, just that I forgot to say from chapter 11, and when the grandmother came and asked for help, Miss Miranda also mentions that she was actually told that this group of workers, directed by Dr. White, was working and helping individuals. So imagine if you're in the spirit realm and you're trying to help someone, and you ask yourself, how can I, who can I ask for help? And then you ask someone on the street, I have this issue. I need somebody to come and help me, or come and help my grandson who is in the so and so hospital, because he was in a physical hospital. And she was giving the information that Dr. White had this group of people who was actually, and they were helping recently discarnated minds. So there is several groups of people, helping, preparing when these disaster happens, right? When these conditions that we're, especially the one that we're facing right now, is going through. And that is in the different, I like to believe that in the different arenas of life, it's not only in the physical when somebody's in the hospital, but also these natural disasters, right? Man-made disasters in the political arena, in the religious arena. All of these areas are being assisted by higher minds, regardless of their faith, regardless of what they stand for as we see it, but responding to God directly, responding to higher ideals. So I want to just put this out there, because it may seem that sometimes when we're bringing these teachings, that we only see this in Spiritism. We only see this, if someone of a Christian faith may say, "Oh, the angels are helping." It's excuse me. The help is all throughout, and we'll see a little bit more of this. And it's important for us to say this because the light is everywhere. The case that we're going to bring now is the mother and unborn child. Okay, Oscar was helping me assist an anguished discarnate woman who was trying unsuccessfully to break her spiritual bonds. I became aware of her advanced state of pregnancy, noticing the presence of the spirit fetus, which lay sleeping after its organic death, although still magnetized to its mother's body. So we're now going to, enter on a case where the discarnated mother had a unborn child. They had a fetus. She was expecting, and unfortunately, they were struck by this situation as well, and they passed. They were still connected, as we can see here, magnetizedly connected to one another in the physical body, right? So Dr. White, after some of them trying, the Oscar and Mr. Miranda, Dr. White suggested to first try to get the mother to fall asleep in order to proceed with the delivery. So they had to induce a quote unquote, as if we can imagine, a spiritual delivery, because they were not in the physical body anymore. That's why at the beginning I reminded everyone, this is happening in the in the spiritual realm. But this is what happens in physical life. It's actually, let's say, a copy or a Xerox of what is happening in the spiritual realm. And because we're so materialistic, the treatment in the spiritual realm has to be done accordingly. What am I trying to say? Because this mother was in such a level of desperation, and she was not well, let's say, morally evolved yet to understand her situation, they had to proceed in the same way as if we would proceed in the physical body, giving her the chance to disconnect from the physical body, disconnect from the fetus, and continue on with her ascension from the physical, the disconnection from the physical body. So let's see more what they bring to us. Dr. Ike asked Anna to attend to the baby boy after they magnetized her. He applied special resources to his crown chakra area, diluting the dense energy, which started to change tonality and shape until it became like a thread completely loosened from the fibers of energy that bound the two of them. if we go back to the teachings of Spiritism, before the spirit reincarnates, it has to go into a very long. When I say long, it depends on the spirits, right? The spirit reincarnating, the mother, the father, all those who are connected. But there is a process that they are prepared so they can connect, right? And the mother has a huge connection with that spirit who is about to reincarnate. So when something like this happens, it's not easy to simply disconnect. Okay, let's disconnect now. No, there is also a process that needs to happen in order for them to go on and continue with their spiritual life. While he did this, the sleeping mother expelled a thick, shapeless mass as if she had given birth to it. So it gives us the sense, as he's explaining, that the process although spiritual, is pretty, let's say, material-like process. We soon realized it was a mental condensation from both son and mother accumulated in her ureters, where gestation had been taking place. From that moment on, her sleep became reparative and tranquil. And then she continued to, the physical body starts to decompose a little bit faster in certain areas, that her mind was not connected to it anymore. And in certain areas, the decomposition of the body was, continue a little bit slow, which would then easily ease her transition into the quote unquote true spiritual life, right? Because this connection also takes some time. So the newly discarnated feeder was taken by Anna to one of the spiritual areas, from where it would then be taken away and awakened elsewhere to live in a community of infants suitable for its future development. The sleeping mother was led to the place where she would also be transferred along with those we could consider as improved, and who, upon awakening in the recovery area, would suffer less distress. I would like to make a pause over here because this is very interesting. So we have a mother who is connected with, who is expecting, right? Unfortunately, this happened to both of them. The mother and the spirit who is about to reincarnate. What happens to them? What happens to a spirit that is of a childlike age, and we can put, a spirit who is still yet to be born in the physical body, or let's say if this were to happen with a spirit that has also recently incarnated and is of a very young age, 2, 3, or 5 years old. I'm just throwing numbers so we can understand. There's a lot of explanation on this, but I would like to bring some, obviously, of one of the Spirit's book, a couple questions, as well as another book that we're going to examine very lightly. We can read later on, but so we can understand this. In the Spirit's book, talking about a spirit that discarnate at a very young age. What is the purpose? Why does it happen? Here's what it is. Here's what we can learn from it. This is chapter 4 in the area entitled "The Fate of Children After Death," studying the death on the Spirit's book. Question 197. Is the spirit of a child who dies very young as advanced as that of an adult? Sometimes much more so, because it may have had more existence and have therefore acquired more experiences, especially if it has progressed. And then the next question, the question within the 197, then can the spirit of a child be more evolved than that of its parents? That is very frequent the case. Don't you yourself often see this on the earth? Cases where children, they're more advanced than the parents. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't respect parents. That doesn't mean that they should lead a good life and honor father and mother, but they can be certainly much more evolved than the parents. In some cases, they can help the parents evolve as well with their intelligence, and we're talking about different intelligence, right? More intelligence, especially. Does the spirit, on question 198, of a child who dies very young without having done any evil belong to the higher degrees? And then the spirit says, if such a child has done nothing evil, it has also done nothing good. God does not relieve such a spirit of the trials that it must undergo. It is, if it is pure, it is not because it was a child, but because it was already advanced. So we're again bringing all these teachings because we want to not only explain what we are about to learn, right, but also so that we don't judge other situations that we may see, we may come across in our lives, the same way we will learn from this case right here that we're still studying. So hang in there. This will all make sense after we go through. The next question is 199, and this is very important. Why is life so often cut short in childhood? The length of a child's life can be, for its spirit, the remainder of a former life that had been cut short before its due term. Moreover, the death of a child is often a trial or an expiation for the parents. So it can be let's say, a work for that spirit who incarnated, or sometimes can be some work to help the parents also grow with that situation. I'm not saying this is easy. I pray for the mothers who have and the parents who have lost their children, and it's something very difficult to go through. But we are here studying and trying to get the best out of it, so we can comfort ourselves, comfort others with the learning that we have, the understanding that we have about life. To finalize, what becomes of the spirit of a child who dies very young? It begins a new existence because we have to progress, right? So here we have this unborn child that was taking, as we can see, I'm going to go back here real quick, right there. The new discarnated fetus was taken by Anna to one of the spiritual areas from where it would then be taken away and awaken elsewhere to live in a community of infants suitable for its future development. If we go back to the book Between Heaven and Earth, we will see a case of or one of the cases that one of the teachings, I should say, of this book is that there is a location, outpost or colony called Blessing Home, right? That helps discarnate children and also serves as a school for mothers to be in the next reincarnation. So what happens is these spirits, because they have gone already through the process of reincarnation, the preparation, the before, the connection with the mother, the father, the whole family, right? And something like this happens, they're not just going to reappear somewhere or regain their conscience very fast of who they were in the past life or the lives that they had before, right? It has a lot of work has been done, so now they will be giving perhaps a continuation into a new life, right? Now, we also learned, let's be reasonable here. We also learned that some of these spirits that may go through this, who may go through this, they may be very evolved. So they may have the capabilities, depending on the situation. We don't want to generalize here, depending on the situation, to very easily start to go back to the process of understanding or recollecting who they were in the past life or before they start the preparation to reincarnation. I hope it makes sense here, because we don't want to generalize. But the teachings that we have, and as we can gather from the Spirit's book, as well, this amazing book by André Luiz, through the hands of Chico Xavier, Between Heaven and Earth, that we will see that these outposts for mothers, for children who recently discarnate, and for mothers to be as well, because they're preparing themselves that in the next reincarnation, they will come and they will become the best mothers ever. They will be so caring and so loving that they will be able to bear the difficulties of the little ones that will come to be repaired. We will see this here. Watch this. So she had expected the little one with, this is going back to Planetary Transition, little one with the infinite tenderness of someone who wanted to experience a dignified motherhood. The husband Now we're getting to the husband, explained Dr. White. After some reflection, had also discarnated, but on one of the country's other islands, where he had been engaged in business, right? Of course, due to the law of affinity, he would soon wake up and have the means of reconnect with his loved ones, using the resources of guidance and clarification that were set up in our sphere of action. So we see that there is this amazing work being done to guide these minds, even though their pasts are not according to what we ourselves think that is the right path to lead or to follow. Check this out. Let's go back to the enlightenment of Dr. White, right? Dr. White thought for a moment and then explained to Oscar and me, because they were very inquisitive of what happened. How can this happen? Why they're going through this, right? Where's the mercy of God on this whole thing? During her next to last reincarnation, now we're talking about the mother who was in distress and who recently discarnated. Our sister lived on one of the thousands of islands of Indonesia. The one where her husband discarnated this time. He had also been her husband on that former occasion. Sorry about the typos there. And he continues and says, they indulge in the magical and superstitious practice very common throughout the region, especially on many of the remote, still culturally primitive islands. Regarded as possessing spiritual gifts, she and the unfortunate spirits with whom she was attuned demanded sacrifices of children because their innocence would bring health and happiness to those who were allowed to use them. Thus, they murdered a number of defenseless children whose ignorant and wicked parents allowed their immolation, victims of barbarous customs. So they were sacrificing children in past lives. In the same region, they were doing this. And this is, again, as he's saying, during the next to last incarnation. Next to last. So it was the previous incarnation, the one that they were now just working with. But since just as always present, love came to them in the form of mercy, and they both reincarnated this last time. They were forced to end it very painfully, extremely sadly. But we want to remind everyone here that what's happening, the preparation is that now this father will reincarnate with again together, so they will become parents of a beautiful family that will come and allow the spirits who were sacrificed, the spirits of children who were sacrificed in the past, to come as their children. The spirit who recently discarnated, the little one, right? The spirit who didn't even reincarnate, I'm sorry, I should say that way, was actually one of the spirits whom they sacrificed in the past life, but he was able to forgive. So he already connected with them in a different way to say, I want to come as their his or her son, so, or daughter, whatever. They don't explain here, but we see here that they were already in the process of, okay, now we need to do something different here. We cannot stay on the same boat. So they were going to, again, reincarnate, and this is the information that Mr. Miranda and through Dr. White brings to us, that they will reincarnate and become the parents of this amazing family to help fix what they had done in the past. So I'm going to switch a little bit more here, so we can almost finalize with the two other comments that I want to bring. And this is really to apply to our lives once more, that Mr. Miranda was actually looking into this whole thing on how the sudden destruction that happened really put people at a lost position, right? The example that I want to give here is that I don't know if you ever seen, and forgive me, it just crossed my mind, this example, but I don't remember what marathon was this. There was actually a marathon, I can't remember what country either, this man was running in the marathon, and this I believe this guy was actually dressed as a Joker or the dress as a clown, and comes and pushes this guy, and he was just in that momentum, right, that he falls on the ground, and then he gets up and he keeps going. But imagine ourselves when we are doing the things of life, or we're going about, and then something like this happens, right? This unfortunate wave that came and destroyed everything, and when you try to make sense out of everything, you are lost. You don't know where you are. You don't know where your loved ones are. And this is what Mr. Miranda was doing. He was analyzing this issue that it was happening to many minds and many hearts as well. In the midst of it, he said the following: but there was no time for the reflection after they actually went over the last case. There would be another time for that. Right now, we had to serve as best we could without measuring our efforts to liberate misguided brothers and sisters, regardless of their origins, the circumstances of their discarnation, of the religion they professed. The good does not stop before any type of border, limitation, or prejudice, because it is a divine emanation for the edification of life. He actually brings this to us, and it really touched my heart because we see nowadays us putting conditions to our help, right? Oh, I'm going to help my family before I help this. I'm going to do this for this group of people because I connect. And it's okay. We respect. But whenever we decide to put like we see here, we look for borders, we put limitations, we deal with prejudice. Guess what? That is not the true emanation of the edification of life. So we need to expand our minds, and most important, we need to look who is around us, whether it is our family, perhaps our neighbor, and I'm talking about our true neighbor, like the next person, the person in the next home or in the next apartment, whatever. If you don't have issues there to take care of it or help, go help someone at work, help someone who may be knocking your door in different ways. So it's just something that really was interesting, especially through the moments that we're going through right now. And also, he said, I noticed once again that each individual is a special being, a variable universe to discover, unknown to him or herself. We don't know ourselves, so it's important that we extend a hand to this variable universe to discover, right? Consequently, every discarnation is also special, typical of each individual because it is characterized by his or her own personal reality. Here is just an alert for you and I, not to generalize. The cases that we're seeing here, they're good for us to study and to understand the consequences of our actions, but we cannot generalize because every situation, every heart, every mind, it's very peculiar, right? And again, it's a special universe to discover. So something, just these two highlights to me, I think it's appropriate for us to bring. And for us to finalize, there is another case that he brings to us. And Mr. Miranda say, I was still pondering the drama of the pregnant discarnated woman, as we saw, when my attention was drawn to another deplorable woman strongly connected to her remains. She was screaming, inspiring compassion in us and sarcasm in a mob of perverse obsessors who were tormenting her with vulgar jeers and, as she tried to break to the bonds to go look for her missing son, another case of mother and son. She was more or less aware of her death, but not the forces that kept her connected to her almost totally destroyed her body. She would call for her son with a poignant voice and then enter a state of derangement, trying to pull out her hair, injuring and throwing herself to the ground over and over, seeking to raise her material wreckage. So she was still connected to the physical body, again, looking for her son and trying to understand, make sense of what was happening. Her greatest anguish, he explained, was that she didn't know what had happened to her little boy, her reason for living during the period of widowhood that had surprised her months before. So she was already suffering for losing her husband, and now she lost her son as well. She didn't understand that she actually had passed, lost the physical body, and she's trying to make sense of this whole thing. And this is actually happening after Dr. White came and also interjected and start talking to her mind to mind to understand her condition, right? Because she was sending the vibrations, but her main condition, or her main problem, was that she was looking for her son. That was the greatest anguish, as we can see here. She couldn't understand that, where was her son. That was her only worry at the moment. In the meantime, Anna arrived, the assistant again, bearing in her arms a smiling, beautiful child of little more than a year old, who had discarnated and quickly recovered from the drummer. She presented him to the doctor. Mind you, that again, she's bringing a spirit that is still in a child form, right? It's not the spirit is not showing him or herself, or the boy actually himself, as a full spirit or of an adult figure. It was still a little child. So let's go back to the teachings that we received, that we analyzed earlier today. So we can see that, again, this is another spirit that will be perhaps taking to visit or to stay in a location where they will develop little, and they will give in continuation. They'll be giving the continuation to reincarnate again. He placed the joyful infant in the arms of the poor woman, making her smile and calm down enough to beg in the singing of, a lullaby to put him to sleep. So again, the connection with mother, back into this condition, so she could actually calm down, and they could start on the full process of discarnation, or disconnecting her from the physical body. And then from there on, we see that through the accounts that they were also taken away and actually guided, so that this perturbation, if you will, would cease to happen, and she would understand fully what was happening to her and to her child as well. This is another case that is very interesting to us, and again, it reiterates what we have just studied with the previous case, and also the teachings that we got from the Spirit's book. And to finalize, Dr. White says, the miracles that love works are continuous and rich in beauty, overcoming the abyss of death. This death is and this is me now bringing my take on it. This death is not only the death of the physical body, but also the death that we bring into our lives while we're living. I know it's kind of hard, or maybe philosophical to say so, but the things that goes against life, or the things that we unfortunately still have inside of us, and this is not bad to a certain extent, because we have been doing the same things over and over and over. Now with these teachings, we're trying to bring life into our lives, right? Or to multiply life. And what I'm trying to say is that first, to think positively. For us to, in the darkest moment of our lives, or the difficult days, when we are overworked, when we are dealing with our loved ones, that we're trialed, that we are asked to do more than what we can give at times, that we think positively, that nothing is forever, things will come to pass, and that we need to rely on one another, to not allow ourselves to even think about anything other than life. I'll give you a personal account. Recently, and I talked to some of our friends here following us tonight about this, that dealing with the public, I have my job requires me to deal with the public, and we didn't, thank God, we did not stop working throughout this pandemic. And there was one day that I came home that I was kind of like tired, and I also started coughing a little bit, and I started really getting to a point of panic that I was like, okay, now I have this thing, and now I'm sick, and this and this and that. And I said, look, I don't know if I have it or not. Perhaps I can do the test. If things get worse, But I started really think with myself, and it felt that it was not like it was not me, Leo, saying this to myself, but it's somebody was like, stop, breathe. And the idea was to think about life. Right now I can't control that I have to get up, and I actually can, but I can't change things and decided to stay home. But I can't control the fact that I have a job that it requires me to serve the public, right? And deal with the public directly and be exposed. What I can do is try to protect myself as much as I can and think about life and think about how positive I can be when I'm in front of people, taking care of myself, obviously keeping the social distance, whatever I have to do. And that was so comforting that the next day I got up, I was feeling fine, thank God, and didn't contract anything. Hopefully I won't, and you won't. But it's just a personal account that I was grabbed by in the moment of difficulty that I was going through, of allowing myself to drop the ball and not continue to what I have to do in life, because I start feeling the difficulties, right? I start feeling the heavy content of what we are emanating to one another. And guess what? If I want to really have this realization that hopefully I think it was my mentor and those around me, sending the good vibration to me, I would perhaps connect with minds that were actually in the same boat. So it depends on us. It depends on each one of us and those around us, as we try to conduct ourselves the best way possible to help them as well, to say enough is enough. Let us think about life. Let's think about the propagation of life, right? To be positive and to be kind to one another and to ourselves, so that we don't fall in the same issues that our brothers and sisters are falling right here in these examples. When we talk about planetary transition, if you're not in the true essence of what a transition is, we would think that this book is about tectonic plates, geographical transformations. But here we are, halfway through this book, analyzing the fact that this planetary transition is more than just that. It's our inner transformation, right? It's our transition that starts within us, and it will eventually, hopefully sooner than later, change the whole planet, right? Connect with one another. We're going to connect with the group of people who are Jewish, of the Jewish faith, the Muslim, the everyone, and bring this idea that we are eternal. If anything, we are eternal. And that is what we would like to bring to you in these 2 chapters. There's more to come. We also we accomplished these 2 chapters now, and then the month of July, at session 7, we will be covering making up for lost time and guidelines for the future. So again, we're halfway through it, and there's a lot of good content to come and for us to explore. This is the moment that I would like to open up for questions and comments. And we'll be working here with Daniel. We're going to read this together and kind of analyze everything here, so we can attend to everybody as much as we can.
Hey, Leo, thank you. Nice presentation again. And this book is now in the middle of the book, isn't it? Like, as you said, we're halfway from the book. A little bit over half, isn't it? It's 22 chapters.
Yes, 22 chapters, yep.
So one thing, before, we have a couple of comments here, so that we're going to read. One thing that crossed my mind during your presentation was that during that time, 2004, when we have the tsunami, mm-hmm. we had kind of more than 200,000 deaths. Mm-hmm. That yes. I remember that time. So, and you are just describing 2 cases here. And I believe that the book has, I don't know, if each chapter you have 2 cases, and the book is 22 chapters. So we're going to have not close to 50 cases.
Right.
So, but when you look at how many people discarnate in that situation, I mean, this is just 0.00% of real cases, the amount of cases that happened in that time. What comes to my mind is that right now we are also living a unique situation that is kind of shaking the whole planet. That is this pandemic situation. So, and how many discarnation also is happening because of the pandemic, but also, every day people return to the spiritual world. So, and what comes to my mind is that when you think that you know all kind of discarnation that happened, and when you bring a case like this, that a unborn child is continue connect to the perispirit of the mother in the other side, and has a deliver a baby that is not the baby, was the mental construction of the mother together with the unborn spirit that formed that mass over that. That's amazing, isn't it? Like I didn't read the whole detail, but what you brought here to us, giving to us like that. Sometimes we don't know really what happened out there, especially when it comes to the case of the transition, as you mentioned.
Yeah, because of time, unfortunately, we cannot bring every single thing that they
Yeah,
say.
you can. Yes.
You bring a very interesting point, Daniel, because it reminds again us that this book needs to be studied, right? And it is true. The details that they bring is vague in itself. It's a lot of information, but still, I don't think that it's everything that Mr. Miranda could have said through the book. And there is much more that what they can see, what they perceive, because they're in the spirit realm, and that is so true. Because imagine what's happening. What I keep thinking is, it's almost impossible for us to conceive what happens behind the scene, right?
Mhm.
All the different cases, because he alerted us that every mind is a universe. Every discarnation, therefore, is a universe of consequences of what had happened, what we have constructed. But the beauty behind all this as well is, like you said, let's say 50 cases, if that. I mean, it's hard to put a count to it right now, of what happened then or what's happening today with the different situations that we go through life. Is that there is an immense amount of help of higher mind spirits that are helping. Despite their faith, on the other side, they're connecting with us when we have the thought, let's help, let's go ahead and help this group of people. It also made me remind me, when I was reading this chapter, I don't know why, it connected me a lot with what happened in Haiti. I don't know if you remember what happened in Haiti as well. That there was also an earthquake that actually happened in Haiti as well, wasn't it? I can't remember now, but I was thinking about that moment. So the same, what we see here, it's happening behind the scenes. So it's an amazing reminder to all of us that perhaps we can, if we do our things, if we live a good life and we are willing to help, when we go to sleep, we can also help, right? Because the grandmother in this case of chapter 11, guess what? She, in many cases, through the sleep, during the dreams, right? We call the dreams, try to help her grandson, but he didn't listen. So there's also all these works behind the scenes that sometimes we take it for granted. So I'm glad that you're reminded of this. And again, this is just a small glimpse of everything. Yes.
Yeah, that's true. So we have a couple of comments here. Kirsten mentioned about, and you brought this about, the chapter 10 of the book Between Heaven and Earth by Andrea Luiz, where they also we can find very, I would say, detailed explanation about, what happened when babies die and what happened to them. And I think that's just like a plug for those that has not read the book. Go back and read.
Daniel, not going to much detail, and I don't want to make this a personal thing, but my mother lost a son when he was 5 days old, and I'm saying this a personal matter, disclosing this to you again, not to make it of one of my issues or pity Lee or whatever, or my mother, but I had in my life, I was very young because this was a brother after me, a gestation that she had after me, who would be the last son. And I saw very vivid of what happened, what my mother went through, of us as a family we went through, right? And my heart goes to the mothers and the parents that goes through this, and it's again an emphasis that God is always helping, right? God is always giving an opportunity for these minds that, or let's say the opportunities were cut short for whatever reason. We don't know. We're not here to judge or to say anything, but God is there. The help of God is there. That's why I say the divine determinism is of goodness. And these are the words of Emmanuel. That's why I brought these explanations as well, to bring comfort for those who are going through this.
Yeah, great. Also, in the same topic, I think, let me see here, Alba made a comment. It's caught my attention that the spirits attached to the fetus was taken to an infant area. Of course, we learned this throughout, many of the books of André Luiz and even Manuel P. de Miranda, that, the spiritual plane has everything that we have here in the opposite way, means like what we have here is a copy of everything that we have in the other side. So it is expected that, there is places that is like children hospitals,
right.
Basically. That's I don't know if in the book they mentioned that, but it's a place that is basically devoted to assisted children, in unborn children, and mothers that is in the process of delivering that discarnate in a very tragic way.
Sure. Yes.
So also Murilo stopped by to say thank you. Samia, very interesting talk. Thank you so much, Leo. And we have, to finalize, we have Yasko question. So Yasko says, thank you, Leo, about the young man rescue situation, the chapter 11. So the spiritual team said that the spirits obsessing him to death needed to be detached fast as the young man needed to survive for moral reparation. Did I understand correctly that it would be better for this reparation for him to survive in conscious condition rather than in vegetative state? Very deep question to you, Leo.
Yes. Yasko, here's the thing. I'm going by what Dr. White mentions to us. The understanding here, we saw the intent of the two spirits, right? That they were trying to force a discarnation by inflicting thoughts of hatred. His heart actually stopped a couple of times of working. So we can see that the energy, the mental energy that these mental darts, we can say this way, that the spirits were sending to this young man was inflicting a faster discarnation. And they wanted to accomplish this to enslave this young man that unfortunately did a lot of wrong things. So Dr. White, with his mercy, says, well, if this happens, there will be more suffering, not only for the young man, but also more suffering for the two spirits, because they will still continue to be in the loop of going after what they were going after, which is to enslave the young man, who in fact did some really bad things. So I'm going again based on what with what Dr. White was trying to accomplish, which is like, okay, this needs to stop. We already have a situation of the young man that in the physical body, he had a lot of consequences of what happened. But also I want to help these two other obsessors. So I'm going to help both sides. And the best way to help both sides right now, or these different groups of people, is by separating them. Because if the young men were to discarnate, guess what? They would still stay connected. And they would continue to inflict pain on him. Perhaps the process of rehabilitation of the young man would be much longer, right? If we can take, and again, I'm also judging based on what we know. But again, going back to what he is explaining to us, the vegetative state, if we can say that, because he doesn't say that, Mr. Miranda doesn't say that, would have been, or was actually at the time, the best way to keep them apart. And the reason I also, to finalize this, because we also have seen, for example, Action Reaction, a book that explains to us that some individuals, they reincarnate in a very difficult physical body, full of difficulties, and by doing so, they are able to be, let's say, go through a moment of disconnection from the other minds that were afflicting them pain in the past. And that sometimes we see spirits reincarnating on deformed bodies with mental difficulties that perhaps they cannot identify themselves the way they don't want to identify themselves or present themselves because of those limitations, preventing them from doing more difficult situations, or to themselves and to others as well. So that's my long and basic explanation, and I hope that helps. So I do believe that was the best outcome for it.
Yes. And I think, Leo, not that I think, what we have learned by studying Spiritism, that, the superior spirit, they all know better. They all knows better than us. And sometimes we don't know why they are taking this or that approach, but at the end, the outcome should be for the best. Mm-hmm. And I believe that this would be like the case of these two spirits. So because of time, I guess we're gonna thank you everyone for joining, and thank you, Leo, for your presentation. Of course, we're gonna finalize with our final prayer that I will lead to our final prayer. But before we finish, just a reminder that next Saturday we won't be having a live stream because of holiday. So we'll be suggesting that our community can go and watch some recorded videos, and to remind this time in the year, the Independence Days here in the US, but also to prepare for the new activities that we're gonna have during the month of July. Okay, so thank you, Leo. We are looking forward to learn about chapter 13 and 14 of this book. I believe it's gonna be the last Saturday of July. 25th. I think 25th of July. So yes, and we're gonna be here waiting for the news for the next two chapters that you're gonna present. So right now, what I want to do is just like invite everyone to follow me in a final prayer. I'm just gonna put a beautiful image here so we all can contemplate the sunset. And connect to our guardian angels and the mentors of the Spiritist Society of Baltimore, asking that they can bless all of us here present in this live stream, but also that this moment also can be shared with those that are truly in need from our community, but also those that are tuning with us here in this moment of gathering, virtual gathering. Bless as well our good intentions, and may the good spirits stay with us during the rest of the week and the new week that we will start tomorrow. With the guidance, protection, and permission, we close this event of tonight, and so be it. Thank you, everyone. Stay tuned for the next month's calendar. Next week, I will be releasing all the new activities for July, and I hope I see you either Monday, Thursday, or not next Saturday, the followed one. Okay? Have a good night.
Have a good night.